Welcome, fellow metal brethren, to another Metal Forge Reviews interview segment where we speak to the amazing talent directly about the records that we have loved so far this year. If you haven't yet, hit the like button. And if you want to see more exciting metal content in the form of reviews, top lists, reacts, and interviews, hit that subscribe button too. We had the unbelievable opportunity to speak with Aaron Stainthrope, vocalist of the UK-based melodic doom band My Dying Bride, about their latest amazing record, The Ghost of Orion. Ben and I have been massive fans since we were younger, so to have the opportunity to speak to one of our idols directly was a bucket list item in itself. Before we get started, let us know in the comments what you thought about The Ghost of Orion. What was your favorite My Dying Bride record? Let us know. In this interview, we talk about the history of the band spanning over 30 years, their approaches to recording The Ghost of Orion, and some really great stories from shooting their music videos. If you haven't seen their videos yet, freaking amazing. Check out Your Broken Shore. Or their other narrative piece, To Outlive the Gods. This interview was a highlight for our year, for our channel. Aaron is a wonderfully talented person and a total inspiration to talk to. So enjoy the interview and let us know what you think in the comments.
Welcome one and all to Metal Forge Reviews. We are incredibly excited and grateful to be hosting Aaron of My Dying Bride for our latest interview. Aaron, thank you so much for your time. We hope things are well for you and yours.
Thank you very much. It's good to be with you guys. Yes, things are good with us. Lockdown is absolutely fine. It's I don't think it's the punishment a lot of people really think it is. But to be honest, My Dying Bride, we've been fairly quiet, it has to be said, for the last 5 years. So it's really a continuation from that. We had a few gigs planned for this summertime, and they are obviously not going to happen. But we haven't gigged for 3 years anyway. So again, it's just a continuation of that. It doesn't affect us as much as it's affecting bands that tour a lot. I suspect they're probably climbing up the walls at their homes at the moment. They're not used to staying home this long. We are, so it's not bad for us, I must admit. So yeah, we're good, thank you.
Good. Glad to hear it. My Dying Bride has a long and storied history that spans 30 years, and it's incredible to think about the bands that sprang up around the time that you got started and where they are now, including groups from the UK like Anathema, Cradle of Filth, Paradise Lost, and they're all still going at it. Is there something in the water over there that adds to the longevity of rock and roll and metal bands?
I don't know. I mean, it does seem unusual that we have such longevity, but I suppose loads of lesser bands may have fallen by the wayside, which just simply get forgotten. And there's a few, maybe a handful, half a dozen, that simply continue because they're insane and have no idea what else they should be doing in life. And it's probably the same all over the world. Some bands will just simply rigorously continue what they're doing because they love doing it. And I think other bands that might fall by the wayside, possibly a little bit more keyed up on making a profit, making some money. And in this business, that's a rare thing indeed. So you shouldn't really set your sights on those sort of goals because they're not going to happen. This is extreme music. I'm sure Cradle have made a good amount of money in Paradise Lost. And good luck to them for doing that. But for the most part, there's not a lot of money in this genre, and that's fine. So the people who are in it are doing it for the love of it. Mm-hmm. We love creating this kind of music. It's in our blood, it's in our spirit, and perhaps there is something in the water. But when we release an album, we don't sit there waiting for the money to come in. We're not counting the numbers. I don't care how many albums we sell. I have to write this kind of music. I need this outlet for me personally. So I write and I get together with the guys and we output something. And it's nice if other people like it. If they don't, that's fine. I just needed to get it out of my system. And then we take a break or we do some gigs and then we start writing a new one. And by the time it is time to do a new one, We've had enough life experience to warrant writing another song about those experiences, because the gaps between our albums are probably a bit longer than most people's. And that is purely almost by design, but it just evolves that way. There's no point firing an album out year after year because you've learned nothing since the last album. You haven't had time to experience things except maybe go on the road. So leaving a bit more of a gap and experiencing life between each album gives us fuel for the fire for the next recording. And again, things build up in your mind over time, and if you leave them there, you could lose your mind. And so for me, writing for My Dying Bride and writing for myself is a necessity. And that's why we're still going. I wouldn't say we love what we do, but we're almost still intrigued by what we do. And as I say, it's a necessity. I feel compelled to write for My Dying Bride. I don't think, great, we're approaching a new era, I'm really looking forward to writing new material. It doesn't feel like that. I get a feeling within my body that it's time to get the thoughts out of my mind and speak to the other guys and say, look, I can feel something happening. Shall we do an album? And because we've been on such wonderful record labels, Peacefield, for so long, they never gave us a deadline. They just said, when you've got an album done, we will release it. And so when you don't get deadlines, that's absolutely wonderful. It gives you complete artistic freedom, and you release an album when you feel it's the right time to release an album, not when someone at the record label is shouting, we need money.
That's one of the best things I'm just going to speak on your behalf, Brandon, but one of the things that we love so much about My Dying Bride is the genuine nature of the music and is the sincerity of the emotional content that you all put out. And it's fantastic to hear that that's your mindset going into it, is you're not up against anybody's invoice or ledger or something like that, is you're making the music not only for yourselves, but for the people who genuinely are going to connect with it. So appreciate that answer so much, Aaron. That's fantastic. We're going to move on to Brandon's question.
The 13th full-length album, The Ghost of Orion, really showcases your abilities as a vocalist. And it's almost as if some of the songs have an entire choir of you. And can you talk a little bit about the recording process with your engineer, Mark Mynett, and how you came to the decision to approach the album's vocal performance?
Yeah, well, I waltzed in expecting to simply do what I've always done on all the albums, and Mark was having none of it, and rightly so, because when Andrew wrote and recorded the album, it was already done before I got there. He really raised the bar with the quality, and there was no justification for me going in and just doing what I've done, blah, 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 spending a week doing it and wandering off thinking, job done. But that's what I thought I could do. And then Andrew and Mark, when they were listening to what I've done, you can tell by their silence that it's not up to scratch. When you finish doing a take and the tape stops, when there's pure silence, you know they're looking at each other. And I can't see them because I always cover up the glass in the recording booth because I don't want anyone watching me and I don't want any distractions. So that silence speaks volumes. And so Mark would say, can we try that again? And let's either try it a bit slower or a bit faster or some other blah, blah, blah. And I'd sort of be surprised and say, really? Was that not very good? And, you know, they'd be like, well, it was okay, but, you know, let's warm up a little bit and get into it. And a few more takes and you'll nail it. And it just wasn't the case. You know, I was banging my head against a wall and I was wondering what I was doing wrong. Mark and Andrew almost needed to mold me back into a vocalist, because I had spent 5 years away from my dying bride and I couldn't get back on that horse. I'd forgotten how to do it. And my attempts at doing it were a bit lackluster. So I'm glad they made me redo it again, because I think the results speak volumes. Mm-hmm. And I've done double tracking and triple tracking vocals many times in the past, probably on every single album. But for this album, Mark was saying, let's sing the whole song in a certain key, and then we'll sing the whole song again in another key, and then we'll change the octave a bit. And I'm thinking, fuck me, this song, it's like Chinese water torture. I'm going to have to sing the lyrics over and over and over and over again in different keys and different octaves. Well, and I was just thinking, this is going to take forever. And it did. The vocals took a year to record, on and off. Wow. And they were frustrating days as well, because I was trying to get into certain areas I wasn't familiar with in my vocal range. They were out of my comfort zone. You sing a line 100 times and Mark says, just do it one more time. And you think, fucking hell, no, do something with the computer. You're the genius. You're the one with the buttons. Make it right with a fucking slider or whatever that shit's called. Mark says, I can do that, but when you play live, you'll wish you'd tried harder to get it in the studio. So I knew he was right. Of course, he was right. I tried and I tried and I tried, and there were a million outtakes. Honestly, this was not an easy album to record. It was hard work, and when you're in one of these small soundproofed booths, and of course it was fucking summertime. There's no aircon, and you've got the headphones on, and when you're told to do it again and do it again and do it again, a level of pressure starts to build. And after 5 minutes, you've got one bead of sweat. And after 10 minutes, you're soaked in your own sweat. I was furious and angry all the time singing the lyrics, because it just felt like I was doing something I really didn't want to do. And when the recording was finally over, there was no celebration. There was no fantastic, that sounds amazing, well done for the hard work, everybody. I just picked up my stuff and walked off. And I didn't bother listening to any of the mixes and the final edits. And even to this day, you won't believe this, but I have a copy of the album on CD just there, and I've never listened to it.
Wow.
I just think, until I feel like I'm going to enjoy it, I can't listen to it. At the moment, I've heard the first two songs because we were going to play them live. So I had to sit through the first two songs, and we shot videos for them anyway. So I'm more relaxed now with the first two songs. I've not listened to that CD from start to finish, because what I'm going to hear isn't what you're going to hear. Mm. What I hear is every single word I sing, I'll be remembering what a fucking shitty time it was. I've no desire to listen to the album yet. But time is a great healer, and at some point I will hear it. Obviously, I've heard, like I say, the first two songs, and the production is amazing. I think it's the best production we've ever had. It sounds rich and layered and luxurious, and the best we've ever really produced. And Mark's done a wonderful job. But the overall feeling I get from the album is very, very punishing and negative, and I don't feel that I'm ready to listen to it yet. So it can sit there for a little bit longer, and I'll approach it when I think I'm ready.
We've had similar answers with other interviews where there needs to be a level of madness. I feel like when you record an album, you have to get to that point of where you're sort of pushed to the edge of maybe even quitting your own band to get the magic. Because now you have on that recording all of those intense emotions that were originally intended to be there. And it's hard to relive those things. I've lived it personally, recording dorky little projects that I have had, but maybe not to the level that you've done. But I can relate at least to sort of some certain extent where you don't want to go back and relive those moments.
Yeah, there was a point halfway between, well, not even probably halfway during recording, when I thought to myself, I don't think I'm fully reconnected with my dying bride, because I took so long off because my daughter was so sick. And when I entered the studio, I thought I was ready, but clearly I wasn't ready. So about a third of the way into the recording, I was ready to quit. And I thought to myself, there are options. They can find another vocalist. I would not have minded if they'd found another vocalist for this album. Or they could release it as an instrumental, or they wait even longer until I really am ready, because I wasn't mentally ready for that album. But then Mark and Andrew came up with some very positive words and great encouragement, persisted, and I did it. But I wasn't ready for it. Hence, I'm not really that bothered about listening to it just yet.
Well, we're very glad you did it, because it's a special record. And
Absolutely.
Yeah. You had a very nice interview with Joseph April of Invisible Oranges back in March, where you talk about how you wanted to approach the music on this new record, Ghost of Orion, in a more simplistic manner. Can you talk about how the music on the album could be more accessible to new fans?
Yeah, we were still on Peaceville Records when myself and Andrew decided that, after decades of trying to be clever and maybe showing off a little bit and being a bit pretentious with some of the music and our approach to music, for the next record, shall we be a bit more relaxed? Write heavy, simple, well-crafted music, but keep the time changes just more pleasant to the ear, because in the past we'd write a riff which was a bit awkward and jarring, and then we'd think, just for the madness of it, instead of playing it 4 times, and when you expect the riff to change, we'll play it another 1 time and then a half. Do you know what I mean? And it became quite jarring. The music was difficult to love because the things you want from music we weren't delivering, or seemingly so. And so for this album, Andrew said, if we write a great riff, let's play it 4 times. Everybody's mental attitude after that 4th riff is going to say, and change. So we do. Do you know what I mean? It's a bit more appealing, and it works. It's appealing for us as well. You can hear the change coming, and thank God we go for it. We don't muck about doing the riff 7 times or something ridiculous. So in that aspect, we wanted to keep it a little bit more easy on the ear. Saying that, the subject matter, the production, the heaviness of the guitars is astonishing, and we try not to use the word commercial, because this is probably our most commercial sounding album, but in the whole general scheme of things, this is far from a commercial album because of the content. Look at the content that's in there. You play this to anybody, even your average AC/DC fan, they will hate it. They want rock and roll. They want 3.5-minute head-banging classic rock numbers. They do not want 10 minutes of absolute miserable punishment. So it's easier on the ear to some level, but it's by no means we sold out. You know what I mean? Because cynics, we know that cynics will be saying, oh, they've moved to Nuclear Blast. Nuclear Blast have told them to write more commercial songs, and that's exactly what they've done. Well, a commercial song is about 4 minutes long and probably has a chorus of about 5 times. Well, our songs are 10 minutes long, and we don't do it. Again, our deal with Nuclear Blast, when me and Andrew went to Germany to speak with those guys, we told them that the reason we stayed on Peaceville was so long, they let us do anything whenever we wanted, and we wouldn't be able to compose genuine music for Nuclear Blast if they were going to be cracking the whip and saying, look, you need to reach these sales figures by the end of the second period, or you're dropped. And they were like, whoa, we're signing you guys because we love what you do. Just keep doing what you do. We're not laying a finger on you. And we went into the studio without even telling Nuclear Blast. And we simply, when we got one song finished, we attached it to an email to the boss of Nuclear Blast, and we sent it with no text whatsoever. And when he heard it, it fucking blew his mind. He didn't even know we were in the studio. And even after that, you would sort of expect them maybe to say, great, you're in the studio, fantastic, when are we getting the album? They never even went there. They sat there and they waited, and we delivered it whenever we were comfortable to deliver it. And when we delivered it, they said, it's fucking brilliant, thank you very much. So it looks like we've got off to a great start with those guys so far. And if that continues, I think we're going to have a good, powerful, strong relationship with Nuclear Blast, as we did with Peaceville.
I think that it's great that you have now a relationship with Nuclear Blast, because it's the band so well deserves to have a bit of a wider audience, and I know that Nuclear Blast really can help to get the music out in front of more people. Not that Peaceville is not a powerhouse by any means, but I think it's a fantastic relationship, it seems, that you have with them.
Yeah, we did need to spread our wings a bit wider. We peaked with Peaceville. When you've been on the same plateau year after year after year, and you know you've got more to give, but you can't reach your audience, that's when we realized we need a bigger record label. So the existing contract with Peaceville came to an end, and we've had about 10 contracts with Peaceville, and after each one, they know we're going to look somewhere else. They're not stupid. And in the past, they've said, look, shop around. When you get a contract from another label, bring it to us. Let's have a look at it. If we can beat it, we'll beat it to keep you. And they've done that every single time. Oh, wow. But that didn't matter anymore. We needed a bigger label to get our message to a broader audience. We love Peaceville, we always will, but there was only so much they can do. We knew Nuclear Blast can do a lot more, and so far we are already seeing the evidence of that. I've been doing interviews for this album since January the 3rd. So, you know, I'm quite horsey in the throat department at the moment. I mean, you know, Peaceville did a lot of interviews again, but it's not on the same scale as Nuclear Blast. Mm-hmm. So, clearly, we have made the right decision.
Your Broken Shore is an absolute monster of a song on the record, one of my favorite songs, and it showcases so many strengths that the band has mastered over the years. What inspired the visual elements of the music video? And can you share some of the stories from the video shoot?
Yeah, the video was done by James Sharrock, who also did the previous video, which was Feel the Misery. And I like James because he's a bit mad. And I presented him with the words and my vision, my concept of what I thought the video should be like. He immediately tossed that into the nearest bin and went off on one and sent me these drawings and a storyboard of how the video was going to look, no matter what I said. And I like that because having someone else's opinion on what they think the lyrics are about, because they're a bit abstract, I'll admit, is very warmly welcome. You know, I'm not critical about it in any way, because in fact most of the lyrics on this album, I've purposely left them a bit ambiguous because I want other people, I want their input on what they think is going on here. And our fans have done that on every single album, even albums with a defined narrative, where it's like there's a story and that's what the story is. People still say, no, my impression is, and they're rewriting a story. Anyway, so I like the fact that James said, this is classic, good versus evil. So we're going to black you up and stick you in a river. And I'm thinking, okay, we'll do it your way. Because in all honesty, my way was a bit lame. The first part, I got away with the first part of the video. It's shot in a room. black and white, slow motion. I wanted that for the whole video, but James wanted a stronger dynamic, particularly when the death metal vocals came in. And rightly so. When you look back, you realise James was right. It may have been a bit tedious being 7 minutes of a slow motion black and white video shot in a studio. So James made the right call. So we all jumped in cars and we drove about 10 miles up the valley. And it was in November. It was freezing cold, pouring with rain. We're all dressed as monks. Again, we weren't sure why. And every band member made these strange masks made of twigs. Which was great because that gave it a personal touch. If we'd have given one person the job of making twig masks, they would have been similar in some way. But because everybody did it themselves, there was great individuality, an expression almost through the twigs. And then flaming torches, flowing rivers. It's proper heavy metal heaven. We loved it. But it rained constantly. It was freezing cold. And when it was time to get into the river, James, he's an Australian dude and he's a surfer, and he brought me up this dry suit and he said, put that on, you won't feel a thing. So I climbed into this big suit and I pulled this huge heavy duty zip across from my hip to my shoulder, and I thought, great, this is tight, this is going to be great. Fully clothed underneath it, no problem at all. So I climbed into this fast flowing river because it'd been raining in November, all of November it rained, so this river was flowing really quickly. And as soon as I got in, the huge zip on the back that no one told me about, which was wide open, instantly filled my suit with ice cold water. And I was frozen after 5 seconds. And I was in there for half an hour. And it's take after take, and I've got this black stuff in my mouth and I'm spraying it all over the place. And eventually we got the shots and it looks great. It's very dramatic looking. But I couldn't even climb out of the river afterwards because the whole suit filled up with water and I weighed 3 times as much. And I couldn't physically, because I was numb, I couldn't climb out of the water. So these guys are pulling me out and they could barely lift me up and they had to squeeze the suit to get the water out. And I was absolutely drenched. And then it was like a 1/4 mile walk back up the hill to actually the scout hut. We were at a scout's place. And they sat me in front of the fire, and I have never been that cold in my entire life. My whole body was shaking so much I fell off the chair. So they stripped me off and threw me in the shower. And even then I was sat on the floor and I was blue. And it was quite terrifying at the time. And then, how we laughed it off later on.
The lengths that you went through to be tortured on this record.
Yeah.
When you're in the zone, when you're at that place at that time, you look around you and you realize all this equipment, all this expensive equipment, the camera, the lights, the generator, the people, have all come together to make this happen. I'm not going to stand there and say, oh, I'd really not rather get into that water. It looks a little bit cool. So I just got straight in. It was great. Anyone would do it. And, you can laugh about it now. It was quite painful at the time. And I thought I was going to pass out. It was really bad. That was cold through to the bone. You know what I mean? I could barely walk. I couldn't even talk for half an hour. But it's done and dusted now. And I think the results look great. It's a good quality video. And I suspect we'll probably work with James again in the future.
I hope you do. It ended up being pretty special, and you got a hilarious story out of it.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. He's a good lad.
Yeah. It's funny. I've been a fan of you and your band since I was 13, and I'm 33 now.
Wow.
Yeah. And, my first introduction to you guys was The Angel in the Dark River. And it was during art class, and I won't get into it, but I just wanted to tell you that, you've been with me that long. So this is just such a cool full circle thing.
Just piggybacking on what Brandon said, we have been huge fans of My Dying Bride for a long time now, since our teenage years. So we're so grateful for your time today, Aaron. Thank you. And it's really been an honor getting to talk to you, getting to know you a little bit more. The Ghost of Orion is a remarkable album of 2020, and we hope that our friends will be intrigued by the conversation that we had today and to support the band, to go out and buy it. What is the best way that our friends can support My Dying Bride, and the best way that they can get Ghost of Orion?
Well, I haven't got a clue because I'm lucky enough to be in a band and people send me CDs for free, so I very rarely buy them. However, I suspect that the Nuclear Blast web store, there's one in the States, there's one in Europe, I think there's one in Australia. They're all over the place now. Nuclear Blast are huge. If you just check Nuclear Blast web store, there's certain bundles as well where you can get T-shirts and all kinds of stuff. There's all different coloured vinyl. The US vinyl is a different colour to the European vinyl, just for those heavy collectors out there. But yeah, it's all online now. Unfortunately, you can't go to the store to buy it as much as we all want to. The stores are closed. So it's going to be online only for the foreseeable future. So you can help us out there because, again, there's no gigs. So you can't come to any gigs to support us there. So I'm afraid for the foreseeable future, online is where it's at.
Online's where it's at. You heard it right from Aaron himself. And if you can't open your wallets, please open your social media channels by sharing this video, by sharing My Dying Bride music videos, share their songs. And if you haven't and are new to the band, please check out their back catalog. Brandon, your favorite album?
Oh, that's tough. Probably Turn Loose the Swans.
Okay. And
with
mine...
Ghost of Orion the second.
Wow, there you go. That's perfectly said. And mine, I would say, I grew up with like Gods of the Sun, but I think A Line of Deathless Kings has some of my favorite riffs. So for some quick introductory albums, check those out. Scream from the rooftops about how much you love My Dying Bride once you listen to them. Thank you again, Aaron. Thank you for your team for setting this up. You're watching Metal Forge Reviews. Take care.